Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, but the whole reason I actually moved to Ireland was to continue my education. That education I chose is film, and more specifically screenwriting. Needless to say, I've been studying to turn this passion into my career, which is one of the whole reasons I started my YouTube channel, was to talk about movies and writing and things of that nature. So I'm trying a new segment on my channel, and this is a rewrite segment. And what are we starting with? Emily in Paris. Now, when I first saw the trailer for Emily in Paris, I really thought it was going to be a show about American going overseas and learning something and appreciating other cultures. But alas, it was just another tale of American imperialism. I have a lot of issues with Emily in Paris, especially as an American who has lived overseas for almost 3 years now. Not in Paris, not in France, but still. But as I said, an aspiring screenwriter, the story and world building is something that really bothered me throughout the whole series. And just to clarify, I'm aware that we watch television and movies and everything as a form of escapism. So of course, making a show totally planted in reality, there'd be no point in watching it. However, I do believe that there is a way to make this show fun and unique, but also not catering to a cookie cutter formula as this show does. So let's talk about how this is gonna go. I'm not rewriting the entire series. I'm just taking a few episodes or scenes and suggesting plot points go in different directions. And some episodes I'm suggesting be cut out entirely, because although Emily in Paris is wrapped up in a nice number of 10 episodes, I believe in either more or less to make the quality of a show much better. And I don't want to offend anybody, so if you love the show, like literally, great. Cool. I'm a screenwriting student and I'm doing this as a challenge to myself to just practice. My semester's over and I don't know how to relax. So this is purely educational on my end. Here's the thing, I'd like to know why the French advertising company need or want the American perspective, because the French characters are written in a way that they don't seem to really want the American perspective or any other perspective. They like the way they do things. What are the stakes? We need to know why the French company need the American perspective so we can understand why they keep Emily around. There could be something really critical driving on this American perspective, and it's just not developed. Because there are no stakes, Emily's rendezvous in Paris seems like a free vacation at the expense of others. We're not really given a reason as to why she's there. At the end of the episode, Lucas, or Luke, runs into Emily outside of the office. He sits down for a chat with her after her first day, which was admittedly not good. Instead of maybe teaching her something that will help her understand the French work-life balance, he praises her for how hardworking she is, and he tells her that the office is intimidated by her. This praise sets the tone for the show. This single scene sets the tone of, my French coworkers don't know what they're doing, I'll teach them the right way, aka the American way. So let's set a different tone. Instead of Lucas basically kissing Emily's ass, Lucas could definitely apologize to Emily like he does in the show about how the office was rude to her on her first day, but also explain to her that they like the way they work and she can't just come in and change everything. Emily doesn't seem to be able to compute this, kind of like she can't most things, but he explains the way the French work lifestyle is, and that maybe Emily could learn a thing or two from them, even though she's supposed to be bringing in this American perspective, which again, we need the groundwork for. This would set the intention of the show to be about Emily learning to appreciate a different culture and being immersed in another culture, rather than bringing her culture over and just trying to infiltrate. This ascot is so hot. It's not even an ascot, it's just a soap wrap. Is that an ascot? Emily really walked into her boss's office on like 3 separate occasions and talked absolute shit about the French language. Then she wonders why her boss doesn't like her. Gee, I wonder. Chuck every scene where Emily belittles the French language. It's not cute, and it's not funny. Emily is so obnoxiously contradictory because one minute it's, I'm gonna learn French. I can do anything. My name's Emily. I'm in Paris. But then the next minute, she's talking about how dumb or weird the French language is. You're in France. With all of that being said, chuck out the vagina episode. Chuck out the episode where Emily is offended that the French word for vagina is masculine. You can't just walk in and change the French language, Emily. I think that this episode was made with the intention to be like girl power or something, but it's actually really ignorant on a lot of different levels. There are structures in every language that literally no one alive right now ever dictated. If you asked me why certain things are the way they are in English, my first language, I don't know. They just are. This episode shows off Emily's American imperialism so well. It's just gotta go. She has no grounds to argue this masculine versus feminine language structure when she doesn't even care to learn the language. We only see her in French classes once or twice, and whenever she does speak French in the show, it's bonjour or merde. No grounds, no right, chuck it. What was that? I don't understand what their breakup was. I don't understand what their relationship was. And I don't understand why I had to be there. In the pilot, there is no direction that would tell you that Emily's boyfriend is apprehensive about them being apart for a year. He's written like your average Joe who likes sports, which is off-putting to Emily, I think. It's not developed well. There's nothing about him or their relationship that stands out to say that Emily's annoyed that he likes sports, and there's nothing to say about her that she has this huge appreciation for the finer things in life. This is just lazy writing to make him look the part of the typical American man. So in episode 2, it makes no sense that he's just on the street in Chicago and Emily calls him and he says that he can't handle a long distance relationship. He doesn't know how to do it. Like, dude, the night before, you were just sexting her on FaceTime. You don't sex people on FaceTime. You were just being all sexy time FaceTime the night before. There's no development to hint that he wouldn't want to work at a long-distance relationship. He seemed happy for her in the pilot. So obviously, this boyfriend is just a plot device. He has no deeper meaning, and he's not interesting. And the whole relationship issue is not interesting because there's no depth to it. So we have a couple of different options about how we could spice this up. Option 1, when meeting the boyfriend, I don't even remember his name. When meeting the boyfriend in the bar, maybe he's not a sports guy. Maybe he's really into business. Maybe he's buried in his phone. Maybe he's obsessed with his work. And that is off-putting to Emily. And we get a visual that shows her kind of being annoyed that she has this huge news about Paris and leaving and this and that, but he's really busy still working even after hours. So then we can see that there's a disconnect between them. Then, once Emily's in Paris, we get a conversation between the two where they're talking about the boyfriend buying plane tickets to go visit Emily. And let's just say they're talking on the phone. No FaceTime, okay? We're FaceTime audioing. And he lies and says that he just booked the tickets. He gives her a time. He gives her a date. All is well. They get off the phone. We see a visual from his point of view. He hasn't bought the tickets. He's just looking at his laptop screen, obviously not going to buy the tickets. He shuts the screen, and that's where that ends. It's pretty much implied he's not going to Paris. We can show, not just tell. We could drag it out even. It could be dragged out and be more dramatic, more juicy. So then, by the time that Emily thinks that the boyfriend is coming, the dramatic irony is set up where the audience knows that he's not coming, but she doesn't. She could show up to the airport with champagne and gifts and a sign and be so excited to see him. But she waits and waits when his flight, the flight that he gave her, lands, and he's not on it. She could stop a flight attendant and be like, hey, check your little computer there, please, because my boyfriend's supposed to be on this flight. The flight attendant does her a favor. He's not on the flight. No ticket was booked. His name's not in the system. Emily kind of puts 2 and 2 together. calls him, then gives him the speech about how Paris is full of culture and beauty and passion and that he doesn't care and that he's a coward. And that's where their breakup happens. So not only have we given the boyfriend a little more depth and a reason to exist other than being a plot device, we've given their relationship a story. So that creates more empathy on our end for Emily. This could extend episodes later where the boyfriend has been keeping up with her on social media, secretly keeping an eye out on her. By the end of the series, when the whole drama with Gabrielle happens, he's like, hey, I decided that I'm coming to Paris. I miss you. I'm gonna try and win you back. That could be a point of contention. It could be a lot juicier than it was written. Or, option 2, there's no boyfriend. Bada bing, bada boom. Emily goes to Paris unattached, but she's so hardcore into this job that she wants to focus and she doesn't want to get involved in anything because she's only going to be in Paris for a year. But then, whoops, the inevitable happens. Honestly, the storyline with Gabrielle at the end of the episode staying in Paris is enough to have a romance concern in there. Don't think we need the boyfriend, to be honest. Even other characters who are main characters in the show, like Emily's boss, Sylvie, don't have much depth to them. They're written as very typical French characters who are just kind of like in Emily's world. It's Emily's world and we're all just living in it. While I do appreciate the story of Sylvie's affair with one of the clients, she's really not delved into that much other than that. And again, it's just a stereotype of a French woman. However, other characters like Julien and Lucas have nothing. And while we don't need to give them a whole life story, why not make them more interesting? Specifically, I think back to when Emily hands out a list of the 10 workplace commandments. And it makes Lucas and Julien pretty annoyed, which makes sense because Emily's annoying. This scene literally has no other relevance in the episode. It's kind of like, why even bring it up if it has no purpose? This show does bring in a lot of like random plot holes, brings up these obstacles or these annoyances that are never expanded on as a plot. So to expand on the 10 workplace commandments, just as one example, why wouldn't Lucas and Julien go and make a list of 10 workplace commandments, French edit? They can have banter, we can see them have fun writing this list while Emily is off doing whatever stupid thing she's doing for that episode. They can come back and present that to her when she's in the office. They could have fun mocking Emily's list, maybe even teach her something about how other cultures view the work-life balance, instead of the scene being used as a way to stroke the American work ethic. This would make the list of commandments an actual plot point. It would be wrapped up in such a fun and cheeky little way that would give the secondary characters some personality other than just being people who live in Emily's world and only come out when Emily's out. Because just keep in mind, secondary characters are allowed. They're allowed to have fun. They're allowed to have personalities. We're allowed to enjoy them. We're allowed to see them as more than just counterparts to the main character. In conclusion, Emily in Paris is very much a typical cookie cutter show. And even with my suggestions in this video, it still follows that same formula, but with a little bit more spice. But I had a lot of fun thinking of ideas and different ways to wrap up and introduce plot points or characters, chuck episodes, chuck lines, chuck people. Just love chucking things. My little Virgo heart is so happy that I decided to butt in where nobody asked for my opinion. I think that with edits like this would make the show more robust and have more layers to it. I hope this video was enjoyable. This is the type of content that I would like to bring to my audience. So if it's something that interests you, go ahead and subscribe, give this video a like, share it, and maybe leave a suggestion down below for a show that could use a little bit of a tweaking, and I'd be open to looking at it. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time.